Our recording starting now.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to see a few of your virtual faces. I recognize some of the names, and for those of you who haven't joined previously, welcome. This is our BIMbc Vancouver group, which has had the objective of connecting architecture, engineering, construction, owner-operator professionals with regards to the use of technology and building information management. So we hope that soon we'll be able to resume in-person meetings, but we are very glad that you've joined us today. We have Jovita Chan, Miles Wheeler, and Dave Campanas from Safe Software, who are going to give us a tailored presentation about BIM and how what FME Desktop does, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Thank you for joining.
First off, thank you so much, Edwin, for hosting and having us here today. My name is Jovita Chan. I'm a desktop technical expert, and I'll be showing kind of getting started with FME and a few examples. And I have with me today Miles Wheeler, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm the account manager for architecture, engineering, construction companies throughout the Lower Mainland and most of North America.
And hi, my name is Dave Campanas. I'm a strategic expert here at SAFE and mostly help larger clients figure out how to use FME to solve their problems, creating proofs of concept, etc.
With that, I'll hand the presentation over to Miles. I have the controls, so just tell me when to hit next.
Sure. Thanks, Jovita. We do have a very tailored presentation, but I will openly admit my part of the presentation is quite general, just more or less to introduce you to Safe Software, who we are, and really, really high level what FME is. Next one, please, Jovita. So yeah, we call it the FME Platform. And as you know, data is a very important part of everyone's world. So this is our slogan, to run your business on data. Next, please. This is our office. We're located in Surrey, British Columbia, just across from the Surrey Memorial Hospital. So you might have seen the construction going on. It's in, oh shoot, what do they call it? It's not Surrey Central. What's the name of the 5 stages? Is it Surrey Central?
I want to say King George Hub, but
yeah,
maybe not the one.
Anyway, the name escapes me of the overall area that we're in, but yeah, we've been around for about 28 years. We just moved into this building, about a year and a half before COVID hit. Unfortunately, we have the top 4 floors and the rooftop deck, and we don't occupy too many of the floors currently. So it's been a challenge. We are a global company. We have resellers around the world who take care of our customers in different countries where there's different languages, and we localize FME into different languages as well. We have a pretty large user community as well, which hopefully after this presentation, maybe some of you will join. Like I say, I've got about 19,000 so far. Next, please. This is at a very high level where we see FME being used. These are the type of challenges that organizations have. They have a lot of different teams trying to share data. They have large volumes of data in different sources, in, we say, silos. They have perhaps a bit limited IT resources. You may be finding that you're being asked at your company to do more and more things simply because they don't want to hire a bunch of people or are having trouble even hiring the right people. I know that Safe Software is hiring, little personal plug for us there. Next, please. So yeah, like I said earlier, data is almost, we say, the most critical business assets that many organizations have. So the better you use that data, the better you can serve your customers or your internal customers making the right decisions with that data. Next, please. This is just, once again, a pretty high-level overview of the types of things that people do with FME. Right in the middle is FME kind of doing a bunch of processes on the data for these various departments, business makers, customer end users, the GIS and the IT department. And then these are the types of different data sources that we're working with. let this person in. Next, please. So yeah, our mission is to help you maximize the value of data. Next, please. Okay, this just goes into a bit more detail, the type of successes that our customers have. It's easy to say, make better decisions and all that kind of thing. But if you have a quick look through, these are the types of things that people are actually doing with FME to create better data, to create better decisions, to streamline processes, to make people's time and energy best spent on working with the data rather than wrangling the data in the background. Next, please. Once again, these are some of the partners we work with. These are some of the technology partners we work with, people who maybe have a bit more of an integration. Obviously, FME supports many, many different formats, but in order to support those formats well, we kind of have a relationship with a lot of the bigger companies to make sure that our support is there when they release their latest software releases and things. Next. These are some of our customers. Some of these will be familiar names and logos. Others may be less familiar, but once again, it kind of reinforces the fact we are around the world. And I believe that McDonald's is primarily McDonald's China that's using FME. But yeah, there's lots of local users. Associated Engineering, who a few of you are with, they have FME licenses, Clone Crippen, and then lots of other big organizations like BC Hydro and Fortis, and a lot of local companies use FME. Next, please. So for those of you not at all familiar with FME, I'll go into just an overview. I'm not going to go into the specifics of the products here. I think through Jovita's and Dave's presentations, demos, we'll go into quite a lot more detail, I should say. But we have an FME desktop product. This is where you actually create the workflows. You point to source data, you massage the data in FME, and then you push it to the destination data. And that's great. You can run it on your desktop, and you can even use a Windows task scheduler if you want to schedule a few things. But if you're looking for more of an enterprise solution, say you want customers or internal customers, staff that you have to help themselves to data, they want to pick the format or the projection, or they want to maybe a certain layer. If it's GIS data, they only want certain parts of it, then FME Server is great. FME Server can help you schedule the data. It can do all kinds of things for the enterprise solution. The desktop is where most every customer starts, though, creating those workspaces, running the data, and enjoying the fruits of your labor when the output is just the way you like it. Next, please. And for those of you, I won't repeat myself, we support about 450 different types of data. We call them systems, formats, things like that. But we've been doing this over the past 20, I can't remember what the slide said, 20 some odd years. And over the time, we've added many, many different types of data formats, including a lot of BIM formats. The power of FME is what we do with that data. In the FME desktop products, we have these things called transformers, and you kind of string those up in a row. You funnel the data through the transformers, and it does a bunch of operations on it to get the data just the way you want. You can see we talk about automating the data. That's more for FME Server. But yeah, you can create apps in FME Server. I really didn't go into any detail of FME Server, but it's a very powerful product. And once again, it does help you scale your organization's data migration transformation needs. Next, please. I alluded to it earlier, but way back in 1995, we started with GIS data, moved to CAD data, added some tabular data formats, Excel spreadsheets, things like that. And over time, we've gradually added more and more different types of data formats. And we're always improving them. We're always trying to make our product run through that data faster, because I'm sure, as you all know, the volumes of data we're working with these days just keep growing and growing. If you talk to someone in 1995 about terabytes of data, they would not understand what you're saying. But today it's commonplace to work on hundreds of megs, terabytes, petabytes. It's unbelievable how the volume of data has grown over time. Next, please. I'll turn it back to Jovita. This is her slide. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jovita. Thank you for sharing your lunchtime with us today on the short week of a Friday. We've got 6 demos prepared for you today, so hopefully we'll be able to get through all of them. I'll be covering the first 3 as well as kind of getting started. How do you even get started in FME? And I'll be looking at extracting lat long points from images that you might have taken out on site with your phone with GPS enabled. Then we'll take a look at point cloud manipulations. We'll be creating a 3D city model using LiDAR and a couple of other sources to write out to cesium. And finally, I'll be looking at an updating IFC example and passing it over to Dave for COBE Validation, Revit change detection, and Revit to Arcgis Indoors. Just maybe if we can get a show of hands, has anyone had a chance to work with FME before? There's a little raise hand button on the bottom if you have hands that are not busy eating, but go ahead and awesome. Nice to see one. So I will exit out of the presentation and head into FME. So this is FME Desktop, and as Miles was mentioning, this is where you do all of your desktop authoring or creating your workflows. This is where you connect to your data sources, be it a file, a combination of a file, database, or API. And you can do that through adding a reader. You can transform or manipulate your data using transformers. And then finally, you can write out to any combination of formats, including the databases, the APIs, and the actual files themselves. So the first thing we're going to look at today is taking photographs from your phone and plotting those on a map with their GPS point. And firstly, I've just dragged and dropped a couple of JPEG images into my canvas. And I will press OK to add that reader feature type, which is what we call this node here, to our canvas. When I first added this in, you might have seen something pop up on our left side, which is our navigator. This is kind of like our table of contents. You'll see our inputs and outputs listed there, as well as our transformers when we have them. So now that I've got my file in my canvas, and I want to take a little look at what information is there. Because I know that they're just a bunch of raster images, they're going to be seated on top of each other. We won't be able to view them very easily. So I'm just going to group it by the file name and hit run. Below is our logging or translation log. This is kind of tracking what's happening, and it's really useful for debugging if you see any warnings or errors that you want to check out. The most important line that you want to look for is the translation was successful. That means it worked out and everything is great. And here we have our images. I'll turn off the background map for now. And because I'm impatient, zoom extends. So here we have some of our photos. These are just photos in Surrey of some construction sites that I walked by. And I can see the photo, that's great, but I want the information inside of it. So I'm going to select this in my table and take a look at the feature information. Here, it might be a little bit harder to see in Google Meets, but we'll have our information about the date, and we have our lat and long information, which we want to work with. And you can see that this is in degrees, minutes, and seconds, which we will likely want in decimal degrees. So I've got my inputs, and now I want to manipulate my data, and ultimately I want to get a point out of this information. So in order to add transformers, we can just type directly into the canvas. So I'm going to type in photo for my photo coordinate extractor, and this takes my lat long and gives me decimal degrees. So I'll just go ahead and run that. So my files go through, it was successful, and now I have my lat and long in decimal degrees, as well as the altitude. From here, we want to create our point. I'll type in vertex to get my vertex creator. And this is quick for me because I know what transformers I'm looking for, but in the case of getting started, when you type it in, it also looks for aliases. So if you're looking for like a clipping kind of tool, you can type in clip. You can look for a merging tool. So it's all there. And I will add the vertex creator. Right, X value to my longitude, Y to latitude, hit OK. And now I'll have a point in lat long, but I need to situate it on the world. So we want to put in a coordinate. We want to set a coordinate system. And just pointing out that we have lots of coordinate systems supported. So if you get to play with this in your own time, you can check that out later. And I'm going to set mine to that long WGS84. And I'll hit run. So what I'm doing currently is partial runs. This is really great with feature caching enabled, which is the default, that it allows me to view the output at each transformer. So I can see that I'm actually achieving what I want to at each point. But I could also hit run to run the entire workspace. And if you're running a very large workspace where it takes a performance hit, or you're finished authoring and you know it works, you can turn off feature caching here, just under run, enable feature caching. And now we have points in our visual previewer. And I'll turn on the background map so we can actually see it situated. And the points are probably a little hard to see, so I'm just, for viewing purposes, going to change the color of those points. This does not affect your data. This is just for viewing. And let's see if I can make this a little smaller. So there we have our points on a map. For the interest of time, I think I will do that cooking show magic and show you the finished workspace. From here, I can add my writer. We're going to write to Excel for this one, and we're going to keep the file paths. I just said for the interest of time, and I'm doing it anyways. Let's see, output. We will overwrite this file. Yes, we can replace. Okay. So we will skip over to the finished workspace, and I will hit run on this from the top to run the entire workspace. This workspace has changed to be a little bit more robust. People who were with me at the start will see that I picked like specific files to drop in, but what if you didn't know what the file names were or how many files there were? Instead, we can use a path reader. This looks at a directory and filters by the JPEG extension. So we're only reading JPEG files from this whole folder. And then instead of a JPEG reader, we're using a feature reader set to read JPEG. So that's what is happening there. This is exactly the same as what we just saw of getting the lat long, creating a point and setting coordinate system. And then we've done some additional attribution management, so we can get the date and time and also create a hyperlink on the actual file path. So we'll take a look at our output in Excel, which is on my wrong screen. And let's zoom in here. So we have our lat and long, our file paths, and we can actually select our file if it's on a shared network or if it's on your local drive. And there we have our image. So that's our first workspace. Now you guys are all FME experts. You know how to put in your source, connect your source data. You know how to manipulate the data using transformers and how to add them, as well as how to write it out. I've only used single sources and single outputs in this particular workspace, but you can definitely use different formats and integrate them together and write out to multiple places at once. I've chosen for simplicity to write to Excel, but you could write this to ArcGIS Online, you could write it to a PDF report. It could really be anything that you need. And then finally, I just wanted to point out this publish button. We are both desktop experts. We're not going to go really deeply into server, but server is where it allows you to really automate, and it really scales up your usage. So instead of just me running this on my computer, you can have really anyone with your permission settings run it without knowing how to author a workspace in FME at all. Main things I wanted to point out in server were the ability to run workspaces, to be able to schedule workspaces, whether you want to run that nightly, weekly, monthly, once a year. And then automations, which allows you to string workspaces together based on an event trigger, such as you wanted to watch a directory either on a local file in Dropbox, AWS, so that when a file is added, modified, or deleted, it can trigger this workspace. So what we're going to look at today is FME server apps. And this dialog here is to publish this workspace to server. And I've got my blue sky connection there. I'm going to cancel out of here. Our colleague, Dimitri Bag, created this FME server app, and it runs a different workspace in the background. And this takes photos. I want to go to my data. You can drag and drop it. So it runs a workspace in the background, and you could share this link out to whoever needs permissions to access it. And they can drop their file in. And what comes out is streamed back is HTML. And it extracts the point location from your photo to have an icon of a camera in the direction of where the image is. So I just wanted to share that as well. Our next workspace, heading more into BIM world, is to talk about point cloud manipulation. We've got lots of different transformers to work with point clouds, and you can take a look through our articles as well. We'll have some resources linked in our slides that we can share out afterwards. And this particular workspace, we'll take a look at the inputs in the data inspector, which is the same as the visual previewer, just open in its own program and larger. So we'll be taking a point cloud of the Granville Island area, building envelope in CAD to clip the point cloud. And then we will also have our GeoTIFF as well as a JPEG to texture both the terrain, the rooftops, and the building sides. So here we have most of our data, and I'll turn these off and take a look at that JPEG. So this will be our building sides. Skipping to the output, what that will look like, and ignoring the fact that I uploaded this yesterday, what we write out is this lovely loading page. There we go, our buildings, and the ground is coming. So we've got our rooftops textured with the ortho photo, and then our buildings extruded. So these came from the extruded building envelopes, so those polygons we saw. And we used the point cloud for the median height to get these buildings. So now we can see our building sides. The workspace that creates this looks like this. I have minimized bookmarks, so as you can see, we have the ability to annotate and bookmark, which makes it a lot easier to hand this over to somebody else to continue working on it, to fix it in the future, or to make changes. And kind of main points in this workspace are filtering the point cloud to just the buildings and the ground, as well as being able to use surface normals to figure out whether it's a wall, so pointing sideways, or pointing straight up for the roof. So we kept this pretty simplistic. And then down here, what we're doing is adding textures using a appearance setter. And then finally writing out to cesium. So this is something you can do with point clouds. We have lots of workspaces and articles that will walk you through how to create something like this that we will share later. And then my last workspace is actually split into two. This is about updating IFC. And IFC is a little bit more complicated, a lot more complicated than the initial workspace I had shown you, where we were just adding an attribute manager to be able to manipulate the attributes. I do think I had skipped that over a little bit, so I'm just going to head back into this workspace very briefly to show that this attribute manager allows you to change the names of your columns or your attributes, to set values, to remove attributes, and it's not quite the same for IFC. IFC is a lot more entangled with the geometry, so it'll be a little bit more complex. If you want to learn more about updating IFC, we do have a tutorial on that, including data that you can download and the workspace, so you can look at this exact workspace in more detail. What this particular first step is doing is taking all of the spaces from an IFC file using the IFC data views reader, and then sorting it by the space name and writing it out to Excel. From here, we can update our Excel file to new room usage from the original usage name. So something like let me find my open office here, could become storage, and we could save that. And in our next workspace, it will take in the Excel updates as well as the IFC space and update those property sets. So we have a tutorial on that, so you can definitely check that out afterwards. With that, I will pass it over to Dave, who will be showing us some, I think, this COBE validation first. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat and I can answer that just for interest of time. And at the end, we'll have some more Q&A time.
Okay, just switching over the screens here for the sharing. And okay, that appears to work okay. Yeah, so I just thought I'd start with some more. These are kind of demos that have been spurred by requests from our clients. The first one was to work with COBE information. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with COBE, but it's essentially a handover document. It's usually an Excel that lists out all of the information about the building you're handing over to the facilities management guy who's got to look after it, basically. Our customer found that they were getting Revit data from the contractors and they were getting the COBE spreadsheets from the contractors, but occasionally these did not match. And some of the contractors were just kind of brushing the COBE stuff off in a hurry, not thinking it was that important. So what they wanted to do was to validate the COBE against the Revit data and make sure it all matched. So what I did there is we put together a workspace that would read the Revit data. In this case, I just have the rooms. This is more of a proof of concept than anything else. And we would read from the COBE space table using the Excel reader. We would merge the fields, those together. In the COBE, they have a unique ID that matches up with the Revit data, so we would merge the data together. And then we would build in a bunch of tests to make sure the data was valid. In this case, we just have one test that the COBE description, they decided we should be the Revit room name plus the Revit room number. So if we look at the space information here, we'll see that generally that is correct. Just to make sure, just to see if this process worked, I went in and I just messed up the first record. So we'd actually get a hit off of a bad record. And we write this out to a separate Excel file. In that Excel file, we have the COBE file, the COBE sheet, and the identifier and the error problem. And what that looks like is here. So if we run the workspace, this is the result we get out. So we found one space and the error description is description field does not match Revit room name plus room number. So that was a basic proof of concept. In practice, what we would do here is in this test filter here, we would add multiple tests. You can put all of your validation tests in this filter, or if it's more complex validation, you can build up a couple of different validations using the other tools. Just create the error message, send them all out to the spreadsheet. Now, whenever they get in a new data set, they run this against the COBE and the Revit, and if they get any errors, they kick it back to the contractor. So they were happy with that. So our second example, and this was based on a webinar we did some time ago, and this workspace was provided by one of our partners at HOK. And they were looking to detect the changes. It's kind of like a diff for Revit files in a way. So they wanted to take the older version of the Revit file, the newer version of the Revit file, and see what changed between the two. So here we have in the workspace, we're reading in the old Revit file, or reading in the new Revit file, and we're just throwing everything into a change detector. And the change detector basically looks at the update key, so there's a unique ID in Revit, so it's comparing the same features on the same ID. And it's separating out into updated features where the attribution has changed, or the geometry's changed, inserted, which is new features, deleted, which is features that have been removed, and then we have the unchanged. Then we go into and we use a few transformers to set the color on these geometries. So we have a blue, green, red, to just sort of let you know what's a quick picture of what's going on. And then we send these out to a 3JS view generator. And this is a custom transformer we put together that essentially renders or creates a 3JS model of the results, embeds that into an output HTML page. And this is designed to be used in FME server. So once we publish this up to FME server, we end up with this page here. So we publish this as a server app. So we upload this into FME server. We say, hey, make a server app out of this. The server app gives you a URL that anybody can hit. And so you just type in the URL there. There's no need to log in or anything. It's a fairly simple web page here. And let's me just drag and drop some files there. So we're going to drop the old file here. We drop the new file there. And then we kick it off and away we go. So reading Revit files takes a little longer than the one that Jovita showed you. So again, with the old cooking show trick, I'm going to swap over to a screen where it's already resulted. So this is the return back in that same browser you sent out. So the nice thing about 3JS is it allows you to render 3D data within a browser. Most browsers will support it, especially if you have 3D acceleration on the page. So we see here that we have a bunch of updated walls. We have some inserted walls. We have some inserted doors here. The rest of the walls have changed. We have up here, we have a little setting that lets you just turn the features on and off. And this is kind of built into the 3JS viewer. And if we click on any of the features, we will see that we can see all the attributes as well. So this is really nice in server. It's kind of almost a replacement for the FME's data inspector for finding out all your information. So again, just a quick and fairly simple Workspace allows you to get some fairly impressive results back, especially if you're trying to look at the difference between two files. That was demo number 2. And for the last thing I wanted to show you is it says Arcgis Indoors, but quite frankly, that workspace is still under construction. So I've got something very similar to show you, and it's basically going from Revit to GIS type product, which in this case is Apple's indoor mapping format. This allows you to take the interior of your buildings and publish them up to Apple Maps. There are 2 stages at which you can publish these things. The first stage is you go up and it's to use to survey your building. So you'll publish up your initial map. If it's clean and everything, you then use a survey app to survey your building. What it's doing there is taking readings off your Wi-Fi transmitters in the building and using them sort of like a built-in GPS constellation to get a 3D location built up within your building. You then upload that to Apple as well, and now the location services on any of your Apple devices will work once you enter the building. Because normally once you enter the building, you've lost your GPS signal, your location service goes down. Now the location service will work within the building. A lot of people stop there. Because now you can use this location services on top of other things like what Arcgis Indoors presents or any other sort of indoor mapping private to your company. It can provide the maps. It gets the location from the phone. That location is being provided by the IMDF that you uploaded in the survey. If you're a venue open to the public, like a shopping mall or an airport or something, you can go to the next step, which is actually to publish the map up to Apple Maps, and then the user will actually, have the Apple Maps user will see that map when they go within the building as well. But again, if you're a private building, you probably don't want to take that step, and you want to use your own proprietary solution. So a little bit more about the Apple Map format is that it is a very simple format with a very long list of rules. So it's just basically GeoJSON, but they have a whole bunch of rules and validations that are all covered on this page that it has to conform to. So the workspace can get fairly complex. We're reading the Revit data here. And this is this file here. So you can see it's a fairly simple building, some offices, bathrooms, etc. There's a lot going on here, mostly making sure the data is clean, it's noted, it's snapped. There's also a section here that takes the walls and makes them zero thickness. So it expands the rooms to take out those wall gaps for you, because Apple prefers it that way. And then you go out and you build up all the hierarchical necessities for the Apple maps. And what you end up of this is, let's see, if I go to, here we go, the IMDF Sandbox. Apple also has this sandbox where you can upload your data and see what it looks like. So I'm going to upload the output of this, drag and drop it there. Comes up some warnings that it's done some snapping. And it's got a few warnings that I just don't have some information in the file. But there's the building. You've got 2 levels. You can click on various parts of it and see the information about the rooms, etc. Now, one thing you notice is that this building is georeferenced in the world. The Revit data usually is not. So in this workspace, I've set up a bunch of parameters that allow you to set a reference point in the Revit file that you know the location of, and then the appropriate latitude and longitude of that reference point, the units that the reference file, the units that the Revit file is in, and the rotation angle of that Revit file to true north. As well, you can also type in the address here, so you get a proper address. And that just allows you to sort of georeference your data as you go into the IMDF. That's also useful if you're going into something like KML or Cesium or any other format that requires a location on the Earth. And I think that probably pretty much covers everything I wanted to show you today. I guess now is probably a good time to open up to any questions.
I do have one last slide on some resources for learning. I can pop that up if there aren't any specific questions that require navigating. Okay.
Jovita, Edwin was asking if we could talk a little bit more about our PDF writer.
Hyperlinks pictures all within the PDF, map and pictures in one file. I haven't tried it myself. I feel like it would be possible. It might be something, I'm not sure if maybe Dave has done it before.
No, not. I played around with 3D PDF, not too much with 2D PDF. I think we can embed them, but is the hyperlink working? That's a good question. We can maybe something to look at this afternoon, and I can get back to you on that.
I'll just cover the slide and open it up to Q&A. You guys can have the slides afterwards, so this is all hyperlinked, but we have the updating IFC example that I mentioned, a bunch of tutorials with both data and workspaces downloadable for getting started with point clouds, and then 3 different webinars. The first 2 are about BIM part 1 and 2. You'll see me and Dave in there as well. And then 5 ways to optimize your LiDAR data is another webinar. All of these have downloadable workspaces. I'm not sure if the webinars include data, but I think we often use open data as well. So it will either be in there or referenced somewhere in the presentation. And then kind of next steps, if you guys wanted to give FME a try, we have free trials, we have free training as well, all of the resources, all free. I love the word. So yeah, go check that out if you are interested. And then Q&A.
I'll just comment that it's very impressive in my mind there that you can interact with RVT files without having a Revit license, or similarly, it sounds like you can create SketchUp files and GIS files and all of that without having any of that software, right?
For the most part, yes. I'd say the limitation there would be for ArcGIS, in that we can write to ArcGIS geodatabase without a ArcGIS present on a limited sort of 2D basis, like points, lines, polygons. We have an API for that. But if you want to write to, say, an enterprise geodatabase, or you want to write 3D data like multi-patches to a geodatabase, we do need to have ArcGIS installed on the same machine. I think that's the only format with that limitation that comes to mind right away.
I believe that's correct, yeah. Edwin also had a question I finally had an answer to about what Revit versions we support, and that's 2015 through to 2022. I don't think it's been tested yet for 2023. I do have it installed, but I haven't seen any issues just yet. If you do see any issues, feel free to report it to us, and we will definitely take a look at that.
One more thing I thought I'd mention, it's kind of, we're kind of working on it at present, but if any of you are interested in like digital twin, which it seems to be the big thing in the BIM industry right now, we are working on reading and writing from Autodesk's digital twin product called Tandem. And I will be actually presenting on that at the Autodesk University this year.
Well, as you mentioned that, I guess it comes to my mind if BIM360 or Autodesk Construction Cloud are things that you connect to also.
Yeah, we connect to, let's see, A360.
And BIM360.
Say again?
And BIM360. We have a connector for that. I can pull up a link for that.
360, yeah. Okay, so we have a BIM360 Docs connector, so we can upload and download from BIM360. We also can, this is the kind of neat thing, is that I think almost all of the reader writers in FME can read and write not just from files, but also from web data. So you can read, say, your web file from A360 or ProjectWise or Dropbox or any of these sort of online platforms by setting up the connection in FME and then just reading the file directly from there. So you don't have to actually, you don't need the step to download it. You can read and I believe write as well directly back and forth to these web services, these web repositories.
Yeah, and I think just to emphasize, because in AEC we work with many different file types. Yeah, it sounds like AutoCAD is in there, SketchUp, FBX, those type of files.
Yep. Yeah, what else do we have for Autodesk? Let's see.
And with IFC, I guess, because there are different versions, is 2.x3 and 4 supported?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both are supported.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. That's IFC. When we're working on, we have 4 support as well, and I think we're working on 4x3. It's partially supported.
Added. I think 4x3 has been added.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I had a recent question about our IFC support, so I looked into it.
Yeah. And we've also, in the latest 2022, we've improved the range of geometries we read from IFC. Now, there's a lot of geometries you can build in IFC, but pretty much everybody and their dog uses extruded rectangles for the most part. But occasionally there were swept rectangles as well and some swept solids. So we now support the swept solids as well.
Yeah, I don't know from those who may still be on the call that have used FME, if you have other things that you've done, maybe that would be also interesting to hear about, or things that come to mind if from this presentation.
And if you think of questions later, because it is Friday at lunch, feel free to send them to Edwin. He can send them to us, or feel free to reach out directly. We're available in the community, so we have a really active forums. So if you were to post them there, very high chances that we'll reply.
Yeah. Also, if you have a really cool problem that you wonder if we can solve, by all means, ask us, and that's what makes my day.
Just a quick question. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, Jovita. Yeah, again, amazing presentation, seriously. I went to a presentation maybe 3 years ago in San Francisco, and it like blew my socks off, and it was incredible. But I never really got around to really learning FME like others I was at HOK. Where can we find the tutorials again?
I'm just pulling up a link now that I can drop in the chat, but we'll send all the materials from today, including the slides and the recording, to Edwin, and he can send them out to you guys. But the knowledge base is where you will find all of our tutorials and then training.
Yeah, and the knowledge base also has sort of a community help page there as well, where you can sort of fire questions out to the community. And that's more of a, how do I do this with FME sort of question. So you can really blue sky there. And there's quite a number of our users will come back and answer your questions there.
And then just the last question, and I hope this isn't stupid, but is there any, I think I got on the call kind of late, is there any coding involved, or is it pretty much no code type of? Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's a completely no code situation. It's pretty much drag and drop the transformers, hook them up. Now, if you really want to code, and there's
no.
I just thought we'd throw out that there are a couple of transformers that allow you to run Python routines within, or R, if you know your R, which I don't. It scares me, quite frankly. But you can do the R stuff, or you can do the Python stuff, which I'm more familiar with. That's kind of handy sometimes in that you can bring in modules. Like there's a ton of Python modules for doing different things out there. So if you find one you really like, you can bring that in. Or if you have ArcGIS installed, you can actually integrate ArcGIS Python, what do they call them, geoprocessing tools within your FME workbench. And there's, I think there's an article on things like that as well in the community.
Cool, thanks guys, appreciate it.
One other thing that I'd like clarified, or at least to hear a response from you, is like there's tools like Zapier, right? Which I mean, you can set up for a lot of things, like to monitor a Dropbox folder, for example, for an audio file, then post it to your podcast or something like that, or send it to otter.ai for .io, sorry, for transcription, and save it back to Dropbox. Is that along the lines of what FME server does, or how does it?
Yeah, the automations tool in FME server is similar to those lines. Just looking for, I'm sure I have one up here. There we go.
But there are no limits to the tasks, or is that how it is priced? Because like that other Zapier business model is based on the number of sort of steps and tasks that happen over, I guess, a month or something. Is how they charge.
Let's see, manage other operations. Okay. So this is the automations page here. So you have a few things you can drop in. You can drop in bookmarks, annotations. So in triggers, which is the important one, and so you have triggers and actions and external actions are pretty much your three major ones. So your trigger, in this case, it's a manual trigger. But you can, let me see, let's place a new trigger. There we go. And there we go, and we can select our trigger event. So you can look at a bunch of things. You can, like I said, look at S3 buckets. You can respond to messages. You can, so there's a number of triggers, directory updates, emails received that you can set up for your trigger event. And then in your actions, you can run a workspace, merge messages or log messages, filter messages. You can do external actions like uploading to the various repositories, sending emails, etc. So there, it's I think it may be a bit more simplified than Zapier, but it's geared more towards what you would do with in the context of FME server. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'd like to start playing with it because it looks quite powerful.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a Zapier expert. I just looked it up, but a big strength of FME is in the GIS or location related data. So I believe that's kind of the edge that we've got over other programs.
Yeah, I'm thinking it sounds like the equivalent, but yeah, tailored for our industry almost. But you can interact, it sounds like, with the, again, I'm just going to list things off, but the OneDrive, what else can I think of?
Yeah, S3, Dropbox, a lot of those are built in. There's one other, I guess, kind of cool thing I'd like to show you. And again, this is more on a sort of a roll your own basis, but we have this transformer called the HTTP caller. And it's basically, if you're familiar with curl, it's like a visual version of curl. So you can essentially send information back and forth to any application that has a web API. It supports both REST and SOAP. So you can set your methods here. Say we want to post, you can set your upload body. So you can post up requests. You can set up the query string parameters. You know, it's all parameterized. If you want to set up just the query string for a get. So this makes it very easy to sort of build your request out of a whole bunch of different pieces that come in, and they can pretty much attributes on the features that come in to trigger it. And then the results that you get back from that, whether it be JSON or SOAP would be XML, you can use the JSON extractors, fragmenters. We've got a whole bunch of different things that deal with JSON. So you can then interpret the results that come back and extract the information out of it. So, whether it's an RSS feed, the guys over at the Weather Channel, they use this a lot to talk to different feeds to sort of collate all the information to that they're then posting up on their website, right? So it allows you to talk to, so any new service that comes along, if they've got a web API, so even if it's a format we don't yet support, if it's got a web API, we kind of already do support it. So you can go through their web API and grab the data you want. I've been using that too. We have some Tririga transformers that allow us to communicate with a Tririga facilities management system. And that's basically under the hood. That's how I built that, is using that HTTP caller. And I should point out the other thing is the FME Hub. And this is, Hub transformers are available here if you just start typing, like this one, Tririga. You see it says custom transformers or FME Hub transformers. They're both pretty much the same. This one hasn't been downloaded yet. They show up when you in the search here, but you can also look for them on FME Hub. So there's a lot of transformers here. You can search. So say that 3JS one is that's a download from the hub as well. If you click on it, it basically comes up with the whole help page and everything, a history of any updates, what people have said about it, etc. And this is all searchable. Now these transformers they're not created by our dev team. They're created by either the support team or our users. So there's a bit of a difference in how much it's been tested and everything there. But there's a lot of variety here to sort of extend the capabilities of FME.
The photo coordinate extractor that I used in the first workspace was one of these hub or custom transformers, which wraps up a bunch of different individual transformers to create the same sequence.
Yeah. And then there's another one. This one. If any of you are Pix4D users, there's like a whole interaction, a whole bunch of transformers that are designed to interact with the Pix4D photogrammetry service.
I forgot to mention last tools as well. You'll find a bunch of last tools type transformers that wraps up that third-party software there.
There we go.
I think that one requires a license. You can do a bit up to a certain point for free, but I believe it does require a license.
Yeah, it just shows how you can take FME and you can sort of use it to leverage your other tools in a nice common or sort of common environment that makes it easy to tie the information together.
So I think we're at the top of the hour. If you have further questions, feel free to come on to the community, find us in live chat. We have a bunch of different support channels, and I'll be passing on all the materials to Edwin to just distribute to you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you everyone for showing up. And I know people have meetings and deadlines, so I appreciate that you made time. Good. Hopefully we'll see you all in person soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a great weekend.